Welcome back to Morning Joe. Joining us now, a member of the Homeland Security Committee and chairman of the Subcommittee on Counterterrorism and Intelligence, Republican Congressman Peter King of New York. Congressman, good to see you this morning. I want to ask you about the way President Trump and the White House is talking to North Korea and talking about North Korea right now. I know you weren't bothered by the rhetoric he used with the fire and the fury, but were you bothered at all as someone who's so focused on national security by the apparent fact that there wasn't coordination about that message, that he uttered that phrase and then the State Department and Rex Tillerson and everyone else had to scramble in behind the president to sort of justify the rhetoric?
Oh, first of all, I think the rhetoric was justified, and again, other people may have used different rhetoric, but again, also, you know, there's a history to North Korea. I mean, President Eisenhower ended the fighting in Korea by specifically threatening to use nuclear weapons. So that would have been the U.S. making a preemptive use of nuclear weapons. So this isn't unusual or unprecedented for this type of talk, and it worked. It caused North Korea to back down. Also, it was Syngman Rhee, again, a South Korean leader, who first came up with the madman theory of let the North think that you are willing to do anything. Having said that, I think this was aimed primarily at China, to let China know how serious we are about this, to get China re-engaged, not just to play games the way they've been doing since the meeting in Mar-a-Lago. I think it's essential that China go with the secondary, that we say that we will use the secondary boycotts and secondary sanctions on Chinese banks, Chinese entities, anyone who's dealing with North Korean entities at all, and also say we're going to do that against the 10 states in ASEAN, the ASEAN nations, because China can bring North Korea to its knees. So I think the president was doing this as a means to get people's attention, including the Chinese. And for people who say this is going to somehow rattle North Korea, nothing rattles them. They're rattled enough to begin with. So again, I just think there's been so much of a pack reaction here against the president.
So you mentioned General Eisenhower and using the threat of preemptive nuclear war. Do you think a preemptive strike by the United States against North Korea at some point, if this moved along, would be appropriate and effective?
Well, I am only speaking for myself. Again, I'm only speaking for myself, obviously, on that, and I have no inside intelligence on it. I would just say that that would only be done if the United States had absolutely very convincing evidence that North Korea was about to launch an attack. Then I'd say we have no choice. That's the only way, to me, that would ever even be considered.
Mike?
Congressman, you've outlined sort of a diplomatic approach to calming this situation down. But the reality is that you have a Secretary of State who seems not to be in constant contact with the president. You've got General Kelly, just arrived as Chief of Staff, General Mattis over the Defense Department, General McMaster at the National Security Council. And there is sort of a loop, an individual loop just around the Oval Office where the president seemingly does and says whatever he wants to do and say without consultation with staff. Does that bother you at all?
Again, the president has his own way of doing things. And that's actually, when you look at the statements, his statement is not that different from what General Mattis said. Obviously, Secretary Tillerson was not part of this, but, you know, you go back to the whole negotiation with China. Secretary of State Rogers did not know what Henry Kissinger was doing. So, I mean, you know, these things do happen. And also, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, apparently it turned out Adlai Stevenson was not made fully aware of what was going on. So, at least with the Bay of Pigs. So, a point I'm making is that can it be better coordinated? Events are fast moving. But I would say right now you have certainly General Mattis and the president on the same page. And General Kelly, I think people are reading too much into what General Kelly says or doesn't say. I mean, I think General Kelly is an outstanding patriot, and I haven't seen any evidence that there's any space between the president and General Kelly. And I know from my conversations with the president, he is absolutely committed to General Kelly. He thinks he is a superstar in this administration.
Congressman Sam Stein here. I want to switch focus to domestic affairs. Two questions. One is President Trump has been increasingly vocal with his disappointment with Republicans in Congress for their failure to repeal and replace Obamacare. My question, first off, is do you think that's a fair criticism that he has? And then my second question is with respect to the debt ceiling, which you and other members will have to address come the end of September. Is it your preference to do a clean debt ceiling bill and just get the issue over with, or do you join other colleagues like Tom Cole did on this show a couple days ago in saying that there should be some spending cuts attached to any debt ceiling legislation?
No, I basically agree with what President Reagan wanted, what President Trump wants. We should have a clean debt ceiling. To me, we shouldn't be playing games with the U.S., with the debts we owe. I don't want to become a deadbeat nation. I don't want to send the signal that somehow the U.S. is reneging on its debts. And as far as the health care issue, I do think that the leaders in Congress led the president to believe that this could be done more quickly than it was. I'm saying right now, put that aside. I think we should go right to tax cuts and jobs. I don't even think we should be focusing on tax reform. Let's get some quick tax cuts the way Reagan did in '81. Reagan waited 5 years, from '81 to '86, before he went from tax cuts to tax reform. If we can get tax cuts in, and I'm talking about corporate taxes, small business tax, middle-income taxpayers, repatriation of money, that'll fuel the economy, get the jobs going, then we can go to tax reform. Otherwise, I can see us getting involved the same ways we did with health care reform, with a million competing special interests all coming in, and this thing getting bogged down.
Congressman, you're back home for the August recess out on Long Island, obviously, in the 2nd District you represent. What's the #1 issue you're hearing about this summer when you go back?
I would say the economy to some extent. And also, again, maybe my district is different. You know, President Obama carried my district twice, by 4 points and 5 points. President Trump carried it by 9. That's a 14-point turnaround. So there's still a willingness to let the president do the job. And again, you know, we've seen a lot. I would say, if you ask me, the main issue is still terrorism. We lost so many people on 9/11.
Yeah.
That's the speck that overhangs everything.
All right, Congressman Peter King joining us from the August recess there. Thanks so much, Congressman. We appreciate it.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.